Hello and welcome to Total Television. I'm Brian Dolby and today I'm talking to Eli Katz, who is the CEO of XConnect. Eli, tell us about XConnect and what part you play in the telecommunications industry.
Hi, XConnect has been going now for about 5 years. We are a global company and we provide IP Interconnect Services for global operators. We service about 150 operators on a worldwide basis. We have offices and POPs in the Americas, Europe, Africa and Asia. And we focus on companies that are delivering IP-enabled communications. That includes both voice, HD voice, high-definition voice, as well as video. That's all part of the video segments, both telepresence as well as consumer video.
Well, that sounds a pretty incredible customer base. What exactly do you do for the operators? Give us a little bit more detail.
Okay, so that's split into two sides. One is if you look at voice, and one is in terms of if you look at it from a point of view of new services. In relation to voice, we deliver increased quality and lower cost through direct multilateral IP interconnect. And when it comes to new services, so we enable actually cross-network communication for new services. So video today, we enable video to flow from one island to another island. And that likewise applies to instant messaging, presence, etc.
Yes, now video is at the stage maybe that SMS was at 10 years ago, something like that. How are you helping video actually get wider across the space?
Okay, so that's a very valid point. Video today, as you rightly mentioned, is very similar to where text messaging is up to. Text messaging in its early days was only available within the actual operator's network. So as a T-Mobile user, I could only text another T-Mobile user. As a Vodafone user, I can only text another Vodafone user. And that's the situation today within the video islands. So if I'm using Skype for an example, I could only have a video communication channel with another Skype user. And that applies both on the consumer side as well as the enterprise side and the high-end corporate side. So telepresence, likewise, within the particular telepresence network that I'm using, I can communicate with the rest of my offices. Ultimately, for the benefit of the industry, we're only going to see growth within video when we start seeing cross-network communication in a very similar way to what happened with text messaging. Text messaging, when it went fully cross-network, both initially domestically, nationally within the country, and then secondly international, at that point we saw magnitudes worth of increase in terms of usage, in terms of revenue, and ultimately in terms of margin for the operators. We're going through a similar evolution now on video. When it comes to video, if we can enable cross-network connectivity, so that if I'm a Skype user, I can now easily connect to any other video-enabled user. If I'm using it on 3G, I can connect to a telepresence. That will create the explosion that all the analysts are foreseeing within video growth. So our role within this is providing a suite of video interconnect services. We call it V, Video-Enabled Interconnect, and this is something that we launched just in the last few months.
And how do you have any time frame when you think we might reach that with video, where SMS is today?
I think we might see a very similar history to what we saw in the case of text messaging. So it took about 2 years before it was fully enabled on a national basis. In some ways, we're probably seeing a slight acceleration to that in certain geographies and in certain segments. But the industry is definitely becoming more and more aware of the requirement for interconnect to ultimately enable the take-up and usage that the world expects.
Now, video is also one aspect of unified communications, and I think that's another area that you're very involved in.
Yeah, UC in all its various different incarnations, our view of UC comes from kind of a vendor-based approach. So you have your players like your Cisco with core managers and your Avayas with Auras and through their former Nortel side. Many different vendors who are providing unified communication platforms to enterprises of all shapes and sizes, clearly Microsoft and IBM and others, etc. The challenge that they face is very similar to what we just described in the video side, which is I as an enterprise have implemented unified communication in my enterprise network, but I can only benefit from all those features that unified communication brings, again in terms of the video, in terms of the presence, in terms of collaboration within my particular island. So as an enterprise, across my offices on a global basis, I can benefit from UC, but as soon as I have any calls going outside of my network, it just goes to the lowest common denominator, which is the public switch telephone network. So the role that we see the vendors are playing is they have an interest to enable connectivity between unified communication-enabled enterprises. And in a similar way to what we described for video, that will see an explosion of unified communication end-to-end. It will allow an enterprise end user to make a high-definition voice call from one enterprise to another enterprise. It would likewise allow them to do that for collaboration, allow them to do it for video. So we work very closely with a number of the key unified communication vendors and platform providers for enable what we call enterprise or unified communication federation. And this is a service that involves both something called ENUM registry, as well as Interconnect Hub and security, to deliver these enterprise federation services.
Okay, well, it sounds like you've got a lot of challenges ahead, and it's going to help unified communications and video really arrive on a mass scale.
Yeah, the goal is mass market adoption, and I think it's fair to say both in terms of video and in terms of UC, we're kind of at just beyond the early adopter phase, and it's quite clear what is critical for the next stage is cross-network connectivity and unifying these islands together.
You've talked about federations. What's the technology that lies behind that?
So it's interesting, across all the federation services that we run, there's two core structures that power everything. One is something called ENUM registry, which is basically the equivalent for DNS. So in DNS terms, you map a domain name to an IP address. That's how the global internet works, and it works quite well. What we need in communications is a way to map phone numbers or other identifications to IP addresses. That's how you benefit from kind of the telecoms world and the IP world moving together. And that's something that we call ENUM registry technology. That's been a core DNA of what XConnect has been about, and today we are running one of the world's largest ENUM registries in the world. That's one of the core structures of all the federation services that we run. The second is a multimedia, multi-protocol interconnect hub. Part of the key challenges involved in linking together all of these islands, again, whether that's unified communications, whether that's video, whether that's HD voice, is everybody's running kind of their own variants, their own different protocols, many new protocols that we're beginning to see now. Things like players like Cisco and Google who are using Jingle, which is a derivative from XMPP. It's not even a standard SIP type interconnect. So there's many different new IP protocols that are being used for communications, and the role of the multimedia multi-protocol interconnect hub is, like it sounds, is to enable these technology challenges that exist between disparate networks to be resolved, and we resolve that in a highly efficient and very secure manner. So those are the two core constructs: ENUM registry and multimedia multi-protocol interconnect hub.
Okay, well, thanks very much for talking to us at Total Television.
Thank you very much.